Hello, my name is Dr. Dave Bullis. I'm the Director of Behavioral Medicine here at the Cancer Center at Newton-Wellesley Hospital. Today, I'd like to introduce you to a program for helping people quit smoking. And it is going to help think about ways to help people develop a program or a quit plan that's going to help them really become more empowered to make healthy decisions in general, but also specifically around smoking. So pay attention to our screen and we'll show you a variety of things that we can help you kind of go through this step by step. Quitting for good. How to leave tobacco behind and lead a healthier life. So thank you for thinking about quitting. We already know, like you do, that quitting smoking is hard, but it is worthwhile. You probably have thought about quitting before and you found it harder than you expected. Many people actually take more than one try to quit. So we understand that it's hard. What we also know, though, is that people who persist in trying to quit will eventually succeed. So you probably also already know that smoking is bad for your health. And there are positive aspects to smoking just like there are negative aspects to smoking. These are all the things that we all kind of inherently know, but they're not very well integrated into most quit smoking programs, unlike ours. So why is it so hard to quit? Well, tobacco affects each part of us. Our physical body, how we think about smoking, and also how we feel emotionally. And if your quit program only is focusing on the physical, then it's kind of ignoring how you think and how you feel about it. Likewise, if it's only focusing on how you think about your smoking, then it's not addressing the physical or the emotional. So we want to make sure that you have a plan that addresses your physical needs, how you think about smoking, and also how you're feeling. So physically, one of the problems is that nicotine is really addictive, and it's great. People love it. When low doses of nicotine kind of wake you up, high doses of nicotine actually calm you down. So the more you smoke, the calmer you get. That's a hard thing to give up. Mentally, it shapes how we think, what our habits are. And in fact, when people start smoking, they don't necessarily set out to become addicted to smoking. You don't even think about it. It just kind of happens. But people have found that the smoking tends to serve a purpose. It kind of organizes your day. It's something you can look forward to. It's on your mind a lot. And people will laugh if they didn't realize how much it was on their mind until they tried to quit. That's when it really becomes obvious. Emotionally, obviously, it also calms you down. And for many people, they started smoking with their friends after work or on breaks, and it became a social outlet. It also is true that having a familiar habit, something you just you can go to, in and of itself can be reassuring and give you some sense of control over how you're running your day. So you can begin to see if all those things are working toward having you smoke. Quitting, it's a high bar to get over. So there are pros and cons to smoking. The positives of smoking, for example, are I'm just used to it, or I like it, it calms me down, my habits are hard to break, I look cool, that's a very popular one, my friends all do it, it's my only quiet time to myself, it's how I start or end my day. Those are all reasons, great reasons for wanting to smoke. The negatives, obviously, these are the things that you hear a lot about in most traditional quitting programs. It's also right on the side of the cigarette pack if you take a moment to read it. But people worry about getting cancer. It costs a ton of money. There are over 4,000 chemicals that can do damage to you in the smoke. I'm worried that my family may get secondhand smoke, or my family gets mad at me for smoking. I have to smoke outside. I get more colds and flus. I know it's hurting my heart and my lungs. So that's what people go back and forth around, right? The good and the bad. There are also pros and cons to quitting. If I quit, my body will start healing right away. I'm likely to have more energy and focus. I'm going to have whiter teeth and fresher breath. I'll be able to breathe easier. I'll cough less. I'll probably have fewer health problems. My family is going to be very supportive of it, and I'll be proud that I can quit tobacco after all these years. Well, but there are also downsides to quitting. I'm going to be more irritable. Change is really hard. We all know that. It's also not hurting me right now, so what's the big deal? And also, you know what? It's nobody's business but my own. I don't know why everyone's thinking they can tell me what to do. I also know that if I stop smoking, I may get fat. I may have no other social life. I may have no other vices. It's the one last thing. So, again, quitting is hard. Smoking is hard, but there are positives and negatives to each side. So one of the things that I encourage everybody to do, just as a very first step at beginning to think about quitting, is take a grid kind of like this. You can either print this one off the screen, or you can just make a grid yourself on a piece of paper and just write down for you, what is the upside for you for smoking? What do you not like about it, if you're really honest about it? What's better if I didn't smoke? You know, those are the kind of things that we hear a lot about in the healthcare, but for you, specifically for you, what's better without it? And then just to be honest, like, what's going to be hard? If you quit, what are you going to miss about it? And the reason for this is that if we can begin to get an idea about what you like about smoking and why it's hard to quit for you, that's going to begin to set up what a really good quit program will incorporate. So you got to have a plan. And making a plan and deciding to quit, it's like moving to a new place. You need to know where you're going. You got to have some goals. Otherwise, you don't know how you're going to get there. And also, you need to map out the route so you know which way to go. Have a plan. Follow the plan. One of the things that's true about this is it's also important to point out that there's no one route to quitting smoking. That's why there's a lot of different ways to get from, Boston to Chicago, but you gotta find the route that's best for you. So it may feel strange to leave a place you've been in for a long time. That's why change is hard. That's why people find it hard to move. It'll probably take some time to get used to the new mindset once you get there. So that's why patience is required. Lots of times people think if I just quit, I'll feel better and then that should be it, right? Well, it turns out that it takes a while for your body to adjust, your mind to adjust, your routine to adjust to the new way of doing things. But what is true is that if you keep at it and you stick with it, it's going to feel like home. It's going to feel like the new normal. And you're going to feel like, you know what, I did it and I don't want to go back, ever. So making a plan comes in three parts. First is the goal. Do you want to become smoke-free? And if so, if the answer to that is yes, then great. That's the first step. If you're not so sure you want to become smoke-free yet, it's still important to do the pros and the cons because it really helps make you a more informed person in terms of actively choosing to smoke when you do. The barriers, that's what's stopping you from being smoke-free right now. It's my habit. I need to calm down. I got too many other things going on. What are the barriers that's stopping you from being smoke-free? The strengths, those are what you bring to the table. You already have these. These are your work ethic, your love of your family. You don't want to expose them to secondhand smoke. The people who will rally for you and be there and support you as you go through it. Those are the strengths you already have. And then we're going to talk a little while about new strengths that you can build on top of the ones you already have to help yourself really be successful. So one of the things about thinking about the goal of quitting is, why do you want to quit smoking? For heaven's sakes, what's the big deal? You may be getting feedback from your doctor, a surgeon, or a provider may be telling you have to quit. And then the question is also, when do you want to quit smoking? And people often will talk about setting a quit date. One of the things I recommend in this program is don't think about setting a quit date until you have a plan in place. That's what's going to help you be more successful. But it does help to think about, why am I doing this? So then we think about what the barriers are. What has stopped you from quitting in the past? Was it stress? Was it habit? What was it? Are any of those things still getting in your way right now? And what do you anticipate getting in the way in the future? What do you think are going to be future barriers? When people start to think about what's been getting in their way, it helps make them more aware of what their options are going forward and what their potential barriers are going forward at the same time. So then we get talking about more of the strengths. What skills do you already have? Who do you know who will support and help you quit? What techniques would you like to learn? New strengths to build? And then what resources do you need to help you quit? Medical professional skills, supports like this program, what kind of resources do you need? So the other thing we can talk about is also, what are the triggers? What are some of the things that set you off? Even in your best effort to quit, these are the kind of things that can kind of sneak up and kind of get in your way sometimes. And so we don't need to read them, but you can sort of see that there's a ton of different ways in which people are doing something and it's just linked in their minds to smoking. We talk about, my coffee maker doesn't work unless I have a cigarette in my hand. It feels like that. Or it feels like my car won't start unless I've plugged in my seatbelt, lit my cigarette, and then turned on the ignition. So it really is that kind of automatic stuff. So these are some of the triggers that we think about that help people become more aware of what's driving the smoking behavior. One of the things I encourage people to do, and this is a very busy slide, but the idea here is just to write in. Sorry,
can you pick it up with that? It's cutting out the top. Go ahead.
So one of the things about helping people quit is this is a very busy slide, I apologize, but basically the idea is if you can track when you're smoking every day across the week, you're going to be able to begin to see some patterns that'll help you get more information about when you smoke and therefore when you need help to quit. And part of this process is you don't have to write a lot of detail in. For example, on any given day, it would kind of look like this. I wake up, I go to the bathroom. After I have my breakfast, I have a couple of cigarettes. A little while later, I walk the dog, I have another cigarette. Then I have lunch and I have a couple of cigarettes. You can sort of see that your cigarettes are spread out throughout the day. You're never smoking a lot of cigarettes all at once, and so it sort of blends into the daily routine. What we've found is with people who are taking the time to write in when they smoke and track it a little bit, as they become more aware of their smoking, they actually become a little bit more empowered, and they actually cut down on their smoking just by becoming aware. So this is an interesting exercise that I encourage you to try. And again, you don't need to put a lot of words in this, right? It's just went to the bathroom, got up, went outside, had a smoke, watched the football game, had a smoke, whatever. It doesn't matter quite so much about the detail. It's just when I'm smoking and what are the kind of things I'm doing around those smoke breaks. So there are a lot of ways of quitting. One is to just go cold turkey. You've heard about this. It's just put them down, don't pick them up. And a lot of people who don't smoke kind of think like this is the obvious one. Like, obviously no one's forcing you to smoke. No one's coming into your house and putting a cigarette in your mouth. And so the most obvious answer is if you don't pick them up, you won't smoke. So the upside is that's great. You can do it on your own, and it does work if you have a very light habit sometimes. And you know what? It can't hurt to try. And it also requires the least amount of forethought, right? So you can just decide today, you know what? I'm all set. I'm done. I'm going to quit. One of the downsides of this, though, let's be honest, is that you're not using any of the other helpful tools that you could. Your body is going to definitely notice that the nicotine is gone, and it's going to let you know that with a sense of jitteriness and edginess, and it doesn't really change any of the mental or emotional aspects of tobacco use, which is why only about 5% of people who try to quit actually are successful when they go cold turkey. So you'll always hear stories about, I know this guy or I knew this person who, just put him down and never picked him up. But they're a rare breed indeed. So basically, if you can do it cold turkey, good for you. Most people can't, but that doesn't mean you shouldn't try. The next tool we talk about is nicotine patches, which you can buy at the CVS. They used to need a prescription, but they don't really anymore. You can certainly talk to your doctor about the right way to start, though. I would definitely start with that. The upside of using a nicotine patch is just the fact that it gives you a nice measured dose of nicotine through the skin. Doesn't give you any exposure to smoke. It doesn't need a prescription nowadays. It does come in different sizes, which are both the strength and the duration of the nicotine. So you can sort of step your way down from a higher dose down to a lower dose, and that's in fact how the program would work. And they're relatively simple to use. You just peel it and patch it on your shoulder, and you're good to go. Some of the downsides of using the patches, of course, are if you have a sensitive skin, you can have a skin rash. Sometimes there's a sleep disruption or dizziness or even a racing heartbeat because of the nicotine. You should definitely talk to your physician about how to use the patches responsibly. If you put too many on or you smoke at the same time as having a patch, you're going to have an extra dose or too much nicotine, and that'll make you feel even sicker. The other thing is that it does give you a constant dose, which on the one hand is a good thing, but it does mean you're getting nicotine even if you don't want it. And again, this doesn't change how you think about the smoking, and it doesn't change if you're using smoking for an emotional reason, like it makes you less anxious. The nicotine patches don't make you less anxious. Similarly, gum and lozenges work similarly to the patches in the sense that they're replacing the nicotine. The upside to they work quickly. You can just take them as you need them. So like you can swap them in and out for a cigarette. If I'm in the car, I'll just put some gum in my mouth instead of the cigarette. Again, they're very easy to use. They do wear off quickly, and they're not meant to completely replace your smoking habit, but they do allow you to sort of swap in and out, cigarette versus gum or a lozenge. Some people report some negative side effects like bad taste or mouth sores or throat irritation, some of the same things you'd get with any nicotine replacement therapy. There's some people have talked about, they've got off the cigarettes and now they can't get off the gum. And so that's a different issue, but just to be sort of heads up going into that. That's especially true if you're using the gum or the lozenges up to 6 months after you've tried to quit. And again, it doesn't really affect the mental or emotional aspects of tobacco use in and of itself. But we'll talk about this in a minute in the sense that this can be a good element of your quit program, even if it's not the whole thing. Nasal spray and inhalers. So another version of the nicotine replacement. Again, the upside that they work quickly. They can help with withdrawal symptoms if you're feeling the withdrawal from nicotine. They can be used as needed, so you don't have to kind of take them, every day at the same time. You just take them when you feel the need. Again, they're very easy to use. Again, all the same downsides to the lozenges and the nicotine gum. These will need a doctor's prescription, so that's another thing to kind of keep in mind. So other tools you may have heard, and these do require a prescription. One of them is Chantix, and it works by mimicking how nicotine acts in your brain. So it doesn't actually make you feel more relaxed. It is not addictive, and it's not a controlled substance. It's also not hard to take. It's one pill twice a day. And there's a very clear treatment plan that you're only going to be taking it, in theory, for about 12 weeks and weaning yourself off the tobacco as you're doing that. The downside to Chantix is that it doesn't work for everybody. Some people have negative side effects like strange dreams or more insomnia. It does, as I said, need a physician to prescribe it. And again, it doesn't change how you think or feel about smoking, but it does, in fact, affect how the nicotine works on your brain. So that can be another good element of a quit plan. But it doesn't, in and of itself, it doesn't fix everything. Another medication people have talked about is Wellbutrin. Again, it works by blocking and mimicking where the nicotine affects the brain and the brain chemistry. Again, it's much like Chantix, not addictive.
It's not hard to take. It can also address some of the depression and anxiety issues at the same time, if that's one of the things that was driving some of your smoking. And as you were thinking about what the triggers are, you can begin to think for yourself, like, to what degree is depression or anxiety driving the smoking. Again, the downsides are it doesn't work for everybody. There are side effects like dry mouth or headache, agitation, insomnia, or weight changes. And I think that's something that a lot of people worry about. So, again, there is no perfect pill for quitting, like there's no perfect path for any change we try to do in our lives. But this can be an element, a part of the treatment plan. Non-medicinal techniques that also can be very useful, and this is especially true if a part of what is driving the smoking for you is an emotional driver. I'm worried, I'm stressed out, I need this break. It's to do a very simple breathing relaxation technique, which is just simply to blow out your birthday candles. You may have heard about breathing relaxation techniques and all that kind of new agey stuff, and you don't have to get too new agey about it. If you've had a birthday, even one, you know how to blow out a birthday candle. And basically what you want to do is just blow out and empty your lungs, and then you take a nice, long, slow, deep breath in, pausing, and then take a nice, long, slow, deep breath out. If you do that 3 or 4 or 5 times, what you'll find is that your body does start to relax, and your mind can focus on the breathing instead of what's stressing you out. And many, many people find that if they begin to integrate this technique into the times when they get anxious, like when they're driving or when they're in a meeting or something like that, that they actually can have a little better control over that emotional part of their smoking behavior. And it also helps them when they're not smoking. And anytime. You can do this breathing technique anytime, anywhere. How does it work? Well, it expels the stale air in your lungs. Your body then will take in the same amount of fresh air that you just blew out, putting more oxygen into your bloodstream. When you have more oxygen in your bloodstream, that sends a signal to your brain to kind of open up your blood vessels, like your arteries and your veins, so your heart doesn't have to pump as hard. The muscles that you normally tense up when you get stressed out, those muscles tend to relax. And when you're thinking about that process, that your whole body, your physical body, will start to feel relaxed. And it only takes 3 or 4 breaths to make that happen. This part is kind of automatic. It's just built into how our brains are built. So you're using a strength you have, even if you never knew you had it. You're using it just by blowing out those birthday candles. So beyond the breathing relaxation technique, another quitting tool that can be really useful is just getting some exercise. The research has shown that exercise helps improve your self-esteem during any medical treatment. Over time, exercise reduces fatigue and improves your quality of life and your sense of vigor. It's been shown to reduce all causes of mortality in certain kind of cancer patients. And it also can reduce your risk of recurrence of disease if you've already been treated. So exercise is a general good, and so that's why we encourage people to do it. But be realistic. You're not going to go from being a couch potato to a triathlete in one day. So my general advice is slow and steady wins the race. Take credit for what you're already doing. So anytime you're on your feet, you're exercising. If you're going to the grocery store or you're going to one of the big box stores or you're walking around the hospital between appointments, all that exercise counts. As you're trying to do it, is you want, like, if you take small doses, so I might take a 5-minute walk in the morning and a 10-minute walk in the afternoon, that's as good as a 15-minute walk. If you do multiple small walks and you take credit for what you're doing during the day, you'll find that you can actually be more vigorous than you thought. Part of it's just making it a part of your schedule, right? So you just think, instead of saying, I'm going to go to the gym for 2 hours, which just seems too much and I can't find the time, I'm just going to make sure that I walk between appointments. I'm going to keep my body moving in any way I can. exercise is always in the popular culture thought of as going to the gym or going for a run or something vigorous, whereas exercise really in my mind is more just about keep your body moving. A body that keeps moving can stay moving. A body that stops moving loses its ability to move. Just the one caveat is to make sure your physician's good with whatever kind of treatment exercise plan you're doing. Generally, they will be, but sometimes, depending on what other ailments you have, they may give you some specific advice. Eating healthy is another technique that you have some control over. And part of that process is thinking about swapping out the high calorie for the low calorie. So one way to do this is to think about stocking the fridge with quickie eats that don't require a lot of effort to prepare but have some nutritional value. Fruits, cut up veggies, baby carrots, cucumbers, peppers, yogurts, that kind of stuff. The reason why we talk about it this way is because, or nuts and berries, they serve a specific purpose, which is that if you were going to swap out something to eat for something to smoke, for a cigarette, you want it to be just as easy to take in as you would a cigarette. So if you have to think, all right, if I don't want to smoke, I have to make myself muffins. That's a half an hour process. That's not going to work, depending on how good your muffins are. But you really want to be able to say, instead of smoking, I'm just going to grab this healthy food and put that in my mouth instead. And you can have a little bag of baby carrots, in your car or next to where you sit by the TV. And when you have a craving, you nosh on one of those first. And it allows you to not only have some healthy food in your body, but also to interrupt that pattern of smoking. So this is the idea, right? Is you put the healthier choice in the same place you would put the cigarettes. So if you have lozenges or gum or the healthiest, like the nicotine gum or even just cinnamon gum, non-nicotine gum, but just a gum that has a lot of zest and flavor. Put that pack of gum in the same place you'd put the pack of cigarettes, in the briefcase, in your pocketbook, in the center console of the car. If you stash some cigarettes in your toolbox, that's where you want to put the healthier option. And the idea is that you're just swapping out. Instead of going there for the cigarette, I'm going to go there and I'm going to grab the healthier option. As we've said before, a lot of smoking is kind of unconscious. You don't even know you're doing it. You're just sort of, it's a part of that behavior, like making your coffee or driving your car. And so if you're tap into that same unconscious behavior, but just swap out what you're grabbing, you can begin to get more control over your smoking. It is true, though, that if you find foods that kind of keep your hands busy and are a little longer to eat, you can sort of begin to swap out that idea. So sunflower seeds or other nuts, you can have a bag of them, even pretzels or whatever, right by where you would be sitting or in your car, or basically anywhere you would reach into for the cigarette, can help you swap out change that behavior. When you spend more time paying attention to it, like if they're seeds, sunflower seed, for example, you have to really pay attention to what you're eating. That gives you a little bit more of a conscious control over the smoking behavior because you're doing something actively differently. Crunchy and chewy works. Again, anything that kind of occupies your taste, occupies your eating. The effort to chew makes it more conscious. It's something that you're doing on top of just mindless smoking. And it also helps sometimes burn off that nervous energy. You're actually doing something. Having something in your mouth can sometimes be a nice replacement for the having a cigarette in your mouth. Strong tasting gums, anything that kind of uses your attention, uses the same part of your body, your hands, your mouth, to occupy in a healthier way, will help you sort of, again, have more control over the smoking behavior. Obviously, drinking lots of water, you've heard it a million times. It is true that if you drink 8 glasses of water throughout the day, that's going to help your overall health. Keeping your mouth and your throat moist reduces the dry coughing that comes with quitting smoking. But it is also one of those things where if you have a water bottle by your side when you're at work or in the car or wherever, it can become a new healthier habit. You're swapping out grabbing a cigarette, you're just going to take the bottle of water. And this is one of those things, as you're transitioning from being a smoker to a non-smoker, having ways to tap into that normal routine of grabbing something to soothe yourself, grabbing the water becomes, like the nuts or any of the other things we just talked about, becomes a useful strategy. How long is this going to take, right? Well, if you stop smoking, even 20 minutes later, your heart rate and your blood pressure return to normal. Within 12 hours, the carbon monoxide level that's been in your blood because of the chemicals in the smoke, that also returns to normal. Within the first 1 to 2 or 3 months, your circulation, the blood flowing around your body and the lung function, they start to improve measurably, like the doctors can tell. Within the first 1 to 9 months, coughing, shortness of breath will decrease. You'll feel like you have better physiological function. Actually, your immune system, your ability to fight off colds, that's going to start to improve as well. If you can if you can stay off smoking for a year, the risk of having coronary heart disease is going to be about half of that of active smokers. So you've already doubled your chance of being healthy. In 5 years, the risk of stroke or cervical cancer are about the same as if you've never smoked. And it's also true that mouth, throat, esophagus, or even bladder cancer, all those risks are cut in half. So what is your quitting plan going to look like? So basically, there are barriers to quitting, there are strengths you have for quitting, and there are goals for quitting. And then there are the 3 parts of us that I talked about at the very beginning of this program. Your physical health, how you think about things mentally, and how you feel emotionally. So what would this look like? And you can print this out, or you can just make a grid yourself that looks like this. And what you want to do is you want to be able to fill it in so you can begin to think about how it's going to work for you. So for example, physically, one of the barriers to quitting is that the nicotine makes my body feel less edgy. My goal is to not let the nicotine control how my body feels and keep me addicted to tobacco. So I'm going to use my nicotine tools like my patches and the lozenges to get an adequate dose of the nicotine while I work on the quitting. That's my strength. Mentally, my goal is to have healthier habits like going for a walk every day and to swap out my after meal smoking by doing some kind of project. Because the barrier I have is the habit I've recognized as I tracked it and I looked at what I was doing in my life. I recognized that the smoking habit is organizing my day, and it also helps keep my mind clear. So I know I have to find some other ways of organizing my day and to develop those healthier routines. So I'm going to use that strength to overcome the barrier so I can achieve my goal. And finally, one of the final barriers to quitting is smoking calms me down. Like it or not like it, that just happens to be the truth for lots of people. So one of the things I'm going to do for my strength, I'm going to learn how to do some of that relaxation breathing, like blowing out my birthday candles, and I can practice that every time I feel that pit in my stomach. And when I start to get tense, I'm going to start focusing on something I can tangibly do with my hands, either on my computer or in my workshop or somewhere to help myself distract myself. And I'm also going to practice my blowing out the birthday candles every time I feel that stomach go into a knot. So that's my goal. And this is a quit plan that sort of you can begin to start with these kind of goals, and then you can build yourself up to more advanced goals as you go along. These are just some additional resources. These are things that you can go online, and there's lots of help for patients, also help for family members of people who want to quit. And as you can see, there's phone numbers, there's websites, there's just a lot of information. And I encourage you to take some time to read through these and go online and find the supports that are going to be able to help you be as smoke-free as possible. Again, these are some other ones, more resources. I encourage you to look at any of these. Each one has strengths, each one has weaknesses. The fact is that there's no perfect website, or there's no perfect pill, or there's no perfect plan that helps everybody quit. But these are resources that you can find things that may appeal to you specifically. And lastly, if you do want to quit and you like the program that you've seen here, I'm happy to meet with you and we can talk about finding resources for you within your community. Typically, you can call our number, 617-831-7430, to make an appointment. The sessions are covered by most insurance. The sessions are confidential. It usually takes about 3 or 4 sessions to help you put your plan together, and you'll be in charge of making it work. So the most important thing is you can do this, and we are here to help. Thank you.